Hello and welcome back to Scenario 7 Podcast YouTube channel. My name is Matt and this is week 13 of our F1 Fantasy Show. In this week's episode, we'll be looking back at how we did at France, talk about price changes and looking ahead to this week's Hungarian Grand Prix. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself, which is Matt, as Sam is still on holiday. As it's the Hungarian Grand Prix, I'd kind of talk about my t-shirt a bit and my experience of the 2018 Hungarian Grand Prix. So not only was it me that attended the 2018 Hungarian Grand Prix, it was also another Scenario 7 member in Robert. And thoroughly entertaining, especially Saturday being a wet qualifying in thunderstorm, dry tyres. Thoroughly interesting. And I very much like this track, as you can tell by my t-shirt. But enough about my favourite track. Of course, we're here for F1 Fantasy. So we'll be going through my team, any alternatives you might look in swapping for the deadline. And it's time to look at how everyone did in the F1 Fantasy table after France. And of course, we start with Performer of the Week. And Performer of the Week this week was Pitor C. I'll probably completely butcher that, but he got 215 points. So not a bad weekend for him. Then we go on to Top Scorer of the Week and Top Scorer, sorry, not of the week, of the whole table. And that is Andrew T. And they're still top of the table on 2,533 points. Now we go on to my team, how I did for this weekend. And I'd say I did quite well. Kind of lucky with one of my swaps. I got 162 points. I'll break down into details of how my drivers did regarding their points. But I got 162. Fernando Alonso got me 23 points. Sergio Perez got me 22. Mick Schumacher got me 13. Carlos Sainz got me 32. Charles Leclerc, my turbo driver, got me 10. And then Red Bull, as my constructor, got me 62 points. Once again, another week, I managed to swap out a driver that ended up DNFing, which I'm quite happy for. So I swapped out Kevin Magnussen for Mick Schumacher. Mick Schumacher got me 13 points, and obviously Kevin Magnussen DNF'd. Alonso had another brilliant weekend, getting 23 points, and once again he somehow outscored Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Onto the Ferraris. Carlos Sainz, of course, started at the back of the grid. Probably should have got a podium, but still had a solid weekend, getting 32 points. And then Charles Leclerc, obviously DNFing, getting 10 points. But as I've explained earlier, basically everyone's got Leclerc as their turbo driver. So I didn't do too bad in that sense. And Red Bull got me 62 points. I came 10th for the week out in France. So 10th in the table, slowly moving towards the lower numbers in the table, which is good. I think I'm now 17th, which I was 18th. And let's have a swig of water. So as Sam isn't here, I normally kind of just fill in roughly how Sam did. Sam finished 25th for the week of France, getting 145 points. He brought in Leclerc as his turbo driver and DNF, but I still think he'll be pleased because he finished 25th for the week, which is higher than his current position in the F1 Fantasy table. So next up, we're going to have a look at some price changes. And of course, there's many fluctuations, and it's important to remember these are the price changes at the time of recording. So I'll go through some driver changes first. Alex Albon has gone from 7.5 million up to 7.6 million, an increase of 0.1. Sergio Perez has gone from 18.3 million down to 18.2 million, so a decrease of 0.1. Perez's form is slowly dropping off, and he was denied a podium with a bit of VSC controversy, and obviously Russell being lightning quick with his reactions. On the talk of George Russell's gone from 24.4 million down to 24.3, so a decrease of 0.1. Max Verstappen's gone from 30.5 million down to 30.4 million, so a decrease of 0.1. Onto some constructors, and there's a very suspicious constructor price change. It was only a few shows ago that Williams spiked by like 0.7, and well, it's like a short view back to the past, because Williams have gone from 7.1 million down to 6.2 million, a decrease of 0.9 million, so almost a decrease of a million, which is crazy in the space of a few days. Red Bull have gone from 32.4 million up to 32.8 million, so an increase of 0.4. Let's have a swig of water. Yeah, so some interesting price changes. Let's look at the team that I'll be deploying this weekend. Of course, this is subject to change, as practice sessions can provide insight into how teams are doing, and the deadline is 1 minute before qualifying. So first up is Fernando Alonso. He keeps his place, been doing really well for my team, got me 23 points out in France, and yeah, he's had a few bad lucks here and there, but he's definitely looking really good at the moment. As I said, outscored Sergio Perez out in France, so he keeps his place. On with Sergio Perez, he stays another week, got 22 points out in France. His form's slowly dropping, but as we explained earlier, he's in a very quick Red Bull. And then onto the one change, I'm going to bring in Kevin Magnussen for this week, swapping out Mick Schumacher. Kevin Magnussen at France took loads of engine penalties and components, and I think that's going to massively benefit him at Hungary, and also Haas are going to bring upgrades to Hungary, so I think Kevin Magnussen will do really well at Hungary this weekend. Carlos Sainz remains in my team. Very unlucky not to get a podium out in France, and with Hungary being mainly a downforce dominant track, I think this will suit Ferrari and Carlos Sainz. And then Charles Leclerc also keeps his place, despite getting a DNF out in France. I think he'll still do well this weekend. I think that Leclerc and the track and the car all suit each other, so I think he'll do well this weekend. And onto my constructor, Red Bull keeps its place. Its increase of 0.4 kind of shows how well they've been doing this season, and they keep their place. Yeah, so we've gone through the team that I'll be depending on practice sessions deploying this weekend. Now we're just going to go through some alternatives that you should consider for your team. Let's have a quick swig of water. So on each show, I go through 3 alternatives, 1 constructor and 2 drivers. So for the constructor, I've gone with Mercedes, currently priced at 33.7 million. They have a race streak this weekend. There's quite a few Constructors have got a race streak this weekend. I think Alpine have also got one, but I've gone with Mercedes after getting second and third out in France. They're looking quite strong, so you should consider them for your team. On to the drivers, I've gone with Lance Stroll, currently priced at 9.2 million, finished P10 out in France, and he always seems to gain loads of positions in the race. He's had quite a few P10s this season. And another driver you should consider is Esteban Ocon, currently priced at 12.3 million. And of course, he won this Grand Prix last year in that crazy race. So there's some alternatives that you should consider for your team. That wraps up our video. Hope you find it helpful. A reminder that the deadline for changes is 1 minute before qualifying. So remember to get your team finalised by then. F1 Fantasy code can be found in previous F1 Fantasy videos if you'd like to join, or it might be put in the description if someone remembers. But yeah, remember to like and subscribe if you found this content helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.